are losing children due to the guns and the carnage and the lawlessness unleashed by those states. Not only is it not normal, it is internationally embarrassing and delegitimizing to the United States.
Virtually every vehicle in the parking lot was a pickup truck, and almost every one had a rifle or a shotgun on the back glass and a pistol under the seat. And we didn't have school.
AOC stood there and called American gun culture internationally embarrassing. She tried to blame red states for the lawless, violent disaster that Democrat policies created in blue cities. She pointed fingers at Florida and Georgia for New York's crime crisis, while ignoring the fact that her own party built that crisis brick by brick. Higgins was not having a single word of it. He came to that hearing not with talking points but with history. Cold, hard, undeniable American history that AOC had absolutely no answer for.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Gramaglia, I'm looking at your presented statement, sir. Say you support confiscating guns from individuals determined to be a threat to themselves or others. Determined to be. So by this legislation my colleagues are putting forth, my understanding of the letter of that law, which I 1,000% oppose, as would our founding fathers, the letter of that law says an anonymous tip from a citizen. So if this was law, Commissioner, would you go to your neighbor's home and confiscate his legally owned weapons, a man that was not under criminal investigation nor under arrest? Would you do it?
The red flag laws would...
That's a yes or no, brother. I got 5 minutes to make an hour-and-a-half statement here.
It's more than a yes or no answer.
We'll move on then. If you cannot say yes, you would confiscate weapons from an American citizen that was subject to this law that my colleagues intend to push through this Congress, then you said in your statement that you would confiscate those weapons if an American was determined to be, your quote, a threat to themselves or others. According to that law, determined to be is defined by an anonymous tip that an American citizen is a threat to themselves or others. You're a police commissioner, a thin blue line brother, sworn to uphold the Constitution, and you're saying you'd see those weapons. I see that as a problem. I'm going to bring us back in time to World War II. America's population, 140 million. 15 million American men came home from World War II with deep scars and significant skills. They bore the invisible wounds of war. There was weapons everywhere. We'll talk about mental challenge. My father was one of those men who was a Navy pilot in World War II. He came back from the war and built his family. I'm the seventh of his 8 children. I was born in 1961. We had guns everywhere. There was virtually no regulation. Any child in the 50s could buy a weapon from any seller if Daddy sent them with the money. We didn't have mass shootings. It wasn't until 1968 in America that serial numbers were even required on weapons sold in this country. You order weapons through the Sears catalog by the mail. In the 70s, I attended a high school, large rural school. Virtually every vehicle in the parking lot was a pickup truck, and almost every one had a rifle or a shotgun on the back glass and a pistol under the seat. And we didn't have school shootings. 1979, I began college. One of the jobs I had to work my way through college was as a carpenter. We restored historical buildings. We had to determine in the process of that work what was the original cuts of these homes, residential homes built 75, 85, 100 years ago. You could tell by the saw cut if it was a mechanical cut, an electric cut, or a hand cut. By such observations, we knew exactly how that house was originally built. And to my amazement as a young man, beginning college in Louisiana, working, to my amazement, you know what I discovered, Madam Chair? You know what these houses did not have that were built 100 years ago in cities in America? You know what they did not have, Commissioner? Locks. Locks. Now I ask you all, what happened to that country, man? A country where homes were built in cities with no locks. A country where guns were everywhere and virtually not regulated at all. Where millions of Americans, 14 million Americans came back. It's 11% of the population at the time after World War II with incredible skills of war and weapons of war, as you called them, everywhere. But we didn't have mass shootings. And here we sit today where an entire once proud Democratic Party is presenting unbelievably unconstitutional laws to press upon our nation, and we have a police commissioner that says he would go home to home and confiscate legally owned weapons if he got a tip. Madam Chair, I yield my speech, but I will not yield my opposition to these unconstitutional laws.
The moment he started speaking, her entire narrative was already finished. She just did not know it yet. Higgins went straight for the throat on red flag laws. He turned to the police commissioner and asked him directly. Under this law, an anonymous tip from any citizen would be enough to send officers to a law-abiding American's home to confiscate his legally owned weapons. No criminal investigation, no arrest, just a tip from a neighbor. Would you do it? Yes or no? The commissioner could not answer. He stumbled. He dodged. And Higgins called it out immediately. A police commissioner sworn to uphold the Constitution, refusing to defend the constitutional rights of the citizens he serves. That one exchange told the entire country everything they needed to know about what the left is really after. Not safety, control, pure and simple. And if you are fired up about protecting the Second Amendment, then hit that subscribe button right now, because we fight for this truth every single day on this channel. Now, here is where Higgins absolutely destroyed her, and he did it with nothing but facts. 15 million American men came home from World War II fully trained in weapons of war. Guns were literally everywhere. Zero regulation. Kids in the 1950s could walk into any store and buy a rifle. You could order weapons through the Sears catalog and have them mailed straight to your house. In the 1970s, Higgins attended a high school where virtually every pickup truck in that parking lot had a rifle or a shotgun on the back glass and a pistol under the seat. Every single day, and they did not have mass shootings. Then he described restoring 100-year-old American homes as a young carpenter, and what he discovered stopped that entire hearing room cold. Those homes built in American cities 100 years ago had no locks on the doors. A fully armed nation with weapons in every truck and every mailbox, and people felt so safe in their communities, they did not even lock their front doors. Higgins looked up from that history and asked the question that demolished AOC where she stood. What happened to that country? Here is the bottom line. And Higgins delivered it without flinching. The guns did not change. The availability did not change. What changed was the culture, the family, the moral foundation. And the Democrat Party has spent decades destroying all three while pointing at your rifle and demanding your rights as payment for problems they created. AOC came to that hearing to make you feel ashamed of your heritage. Higgins made her feel ashamed of her argument. He closed by telling that entire committee directly he would not yield his opposition to their unconstitutional laws. Not 1 inch. AOC had no comeback. Her allies had no answer, because you cannot argue with history and you cannot shame a man who knows exactly what he stands for. Smash that like button right now. Drop Higgins was right in the comments. Share this with every Second Amendment supporter you know, and subscribe right now, because this fight is far from over. Stay loud. Stay armed with the truth.